I'm just grabbing my computer from the door. My cord. I gotta grab it.
Are we ready? Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marie Herring, the senior pastor of the Dayspring Missionary Baptist Church on Northeast 8th Avenue. I'm a former educator in Alachua County. I taught math, IB math at Eastside High School many, many years ago. I'm the wife of Linton Herring. I have four children and 4 grandchildren. I'm a proud grandmother. And I'm honored to be here today. And I'd like to thank the NAACP and the United Church of Gainesville for co-sponsoring this event. I will now introduce to you 2 of our candidates, and then Reverend Talia will introduce the other 2 candidates. Thank you for your service. Our first candidate is Con Lynn Banco. Long before Con Lynn was leading initiatives in Alachua County and statewide to improve her children's education. She was the daughter of a Vietnamese immigrant and a Vietnam veteran. Her life as an accountant and small business owner took on a new direction when she and her husband had their children, and they all attended Alachua County Public School. Con Lynn Banco has since spearheaded some of the biggest education initiatives in Alachua County. Her volunteer work was recognized by the Florida Department of Education, naming her 2018 to 2019 Volunteer of the Year for the state of Florida. Welcome, Con Lynn. Our next candidate, Diane McGraw, is running for the Alachua County School Board to fill a seat in District 2. She realizes education inequities are real in Alachua County. She's also concerned about Alachua County being an A rated district with an achievement gap that has exceeded 45% for more than 5 years. with more than 25 years of experience as a former probation officer with the Alachua County Court Services, former intensive case manager with Meridian Behavioral Health Care, master's degree in education, certified licensed realtor, and now a successful business owner. Diane is more than qualified to serve in this capacity. Her volunteer service to the schools since 1992 has included school advisory councils, PTA volunteer, Boost the Club president, and student family educational advocate at various schools. She is truly committed to addressing the academic and racial inequities by improving students' reading and comprehension skills and ensuring all children are prepared for a career or a college pathway when they exit the doors of the Alachua County Public Schools. Thank you, ladies and Reverend Talia.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us. I'm Reverend Talia Raymond. I am one of the ministers at the United Church of Gainesville, and I'm so honored to be asked to moderate this important event tonight. As churches, we cannot endorse a particular candidate, but we are so honored and proud to be able to give space and voice to these concerns of our community. And thank you all so much for being with us this evening. And now it's my honor to introduce this two candidates. Ms. Sandy Calkins for election to the Alachua County School Board District 4 seat. She has recently retired after 38 years working as the director at the Alachua County Education Association. She was privileged to work primarily with the education support professionals, for whom she served as their chief negotiator, representative at their work sites, and mentor. After spending time in our schools, at the district office, and at many different departments, Ms. Calkins has a unique perspective of our public school system. She was also elected and served as a Gainesville City Commissioner from 1996 to 1999. Personally, she has been married to her husband Kiefer for 47 years, and they have lived in Alachua County since 1982. They have a 41-year-old son who lives in Ocala. Ms. Calkins is asking for your support in this election, as she believes she is the best candidate to work for the students, teachers, support staff, parents, and community members in moving our public schools forward in these troubling times. Thank you. And finally, Dr. Leonetta McNeely. Dr. McNeely is a candidate for the Alachua County School Board District 4 as well. She has 38 years of experience in education as an elementary teacher and principal. She was first elected to the school board in 2012, is now distinguished by the Florida School Boards Association as a certified board member in Alachua County. Her goals as a school board member include putting children first, empowering all school employees, building collaborative partnerships, increase academic performance of students. With your vote on August 18th, she says she will continue to make positive needed change in Alachua County Public Schools. Thank you all. This evening, each candidate will be asked to address 6 questions that have been submitted to us by the hosting committees. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and we will rotate the order in which the candidates speak, beginning in the order in which you were introduced. The candidate who answers first this time will answer the next question last, and second this time will be first next, and rotate on so that way. Following those 6 questions, each candidate will be invited to speak in closing for 2 minutes. The moderator will give the candidate a warning, and that will look like this for those of you there. The clap sign to be both supportive and to give the candidate an idea that they have about 30 seconds remaining. And then we'll give a verbal notice when your time is up for both the questions and the closing. Do any of the candidates have questions about the format? No? All right, then it is my honor to turn this back to Reverend Dr. Herring, who has our first.
We can't hear you, Reverend Marie. You're still muted.
Okay. The first question will go in this order to the candidates.
Dr.
Ms.
Herring,
Blanco, yes.
Dr. Herring, you were muted. Will you please start over? I just got you unmuted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our first question is going to go in this order. Ms. Banco will answer first, and then Ms. Calkin, and this Ms. McGraw, and then Ms. McNeely. All right. It says, how do you define equity? What is an example of systemic racism in our school system, and how will you address it? Ms. Banco.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the question. I would define equity as providing students with what they need to learn how to learn. And that is going to be different and individual for every single student. I would also say that an example of systemic racism in our school system can be is exemplified by something we recently have gone through, which is the discussion of the renaming of J.J. Finley Elementary School. Placing a name on a building and keeping it there for a changing community is an example of having children who could not have been served when that school was named in that building. And explain to them the person that we're honoring would not have recognized that their education would have been accepted in that building. So I believe an example of any example of systemic racism shows that we have done harm to any child in our schools.
Thank you. Ms. Calkin. And Ms. Calkin, I'll ask the question again. How do you define equity? And what is an example of systemic racism in our school system, and how will you address it?
I think equity, I would define equity concerning a school system as making sure that every child in every school has the same materials, resources, quality of instructors, all across, no matter where you go to school or who you are. I think some of the systemic racism shows up in some of our East Side schools where there hasn't been a real level playing field. I know we're trying to play catch up now with some additional sources and get their grades up, but I think that there has been some harm done, and we're working really hard to get everybody back on track and get our grades up, and hopefully to conquer that.
Thank you. Ms. McGraw. Ms. McGraw needs to be unmuted.
All right, thank you. I'm unmuted. Equity is about making sure every child, regardless of zip code, religion, age, sexual orientation, no matter where they come from, making sure they have what they need to succeed in all aspects of their lives. One of the things, when we look at systemic racism, our school system, unfortunately, the data itself speaks to systemic racism. When you have 70% of African-American children who are not performing well in reading and math, you have 84% of kids with disabilities who are not doing successful in reading and math. You only have 26% of white students who are not doing well in math or reading. We have a problem, and systemic racism equals prejudice plus power. That's what racism is all about. One of the examples of racism is our segregated schools, the lack of a valuable system to address the achievement gap, just about strategic placement of principals. For example, we placed our principals that have been in some of our East Side schools. they fail because they don't have the resources to make them successful. That gives an image of negativity in East Gainesville. So that is my take on what systemic racism is and all about equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGraw. Ms. McNeely?
Thank you. And I'm so glad that I'm here with the candidates. And I'd like to start off by saying that I look at equity as all students, all children in the Alachua County school system will have all of the resources that they need. They shouldn't be wanting for anything if we have equity. That means East Side schools, as well as our Western quadrant of our community. The systemic racism shows up certainly with our performance in our students. I hate to repeat some of the things that one of the candidates spoke, but I'm certainly looking and monitoring all of the time about the achievement of our students. And so when we have a gap as large as we do between our white students as well as our African American students, we've got a problem. And so I think that it starts in the schools, certainly, because I see so many of our schools, I'm going to call it what it is, resegregated. And so you have a lot of situations where we need to work on making our schools more diverse, getting strong personnel in our schools, which includes administration, as well as our instructional staff and our educational support professionals. So all of these things tie in together. And if we could get that straight, then we could say we don't have systemic racism.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. I have your second question. As had been mentioned, data from the Florida Department of Education and the school district's research and the equity department indicate that over 70% of our Black students are not reading or performing in mathematics at grade level. White student performance consistently ranks at the top of the state, while Black student performance continually ranks at the bottom of the state. What do you believe is a cause of this, and how do you seek to address it? And this time the candidate order will begin with Ms. McGraw, then Ms. Calkins, Dr. McNeely, and Ms. Banco. So Ms. McGraw, would you like to take it away? Thank you.
As I said before, our data here in Alachua County is unacceptable. As a candidate and also as a community advocate for years, I've studied the data in our public schools with various organizations. I partnered through being a member and president of 4A's with Dr. Brianna Kennedy Lewis with the Educational Task Force. I've conducted listening tours. Also, I've addressed these issues on my educational radio talk show, which I started last May called Get On Board, which I've had educators from across this county, across the country, to come in and talk about systemic racism, the implicit biases, and how you address that. You have to have leadership when the district, the culture of the district has to change. That has been a cause of it. You have to believe as leaders, especially if you're a school board member, that all children can learn. So when we change the culture, then people will begin to understand, and everybody else, your teachers, they will follow. And then also a reading task force to address this. We must have a reading task force to address the achievement gap. If every kid can read, they are much better, and it has to start in the primary years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGraw. Ms. Calkins. Oh, you're still muted.
I was going too.
Yeah, I saw it. I'll start the time now when we start hearing you speak.
I think we need to do all in our power to close the achievement gap. I think our teachers need to be better trained so they can deal with children of a different culture. I think we need equity instructors, both instructors and non-instruction, to do trainings at the schools for whole groups. Everybody needs to get on board. We also need to provide workshops for parents and the community so that everybody's involved. I think we're going to have to do a lot of things to get the students back up to speed. Some of it is partnerships with the community so we can have mentors. They can come in, make a year commitment. My brother is a minister of a Methodist church, and his church adopted a school. And they had 60 people out mentoring, having a clothes closet, doing all kinds of things. And the school went up from a C to an A in 1 year. So it's a power, in taking an interest as a mentor. I also think we need more partnerships with businesses so students can go and see what some options are for them when they get older. That's it, right? Is my time up? Yeah.
15 seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, I also have a quick idea on East Side elementary schools, perhaps converting one of the elementary schools into a pre-IB center or a whole language school, which would attract people from all over the district to come into the East Side and make it a little more balanced.
Thank you. Dr. McNeely.
You say that you wanted us to say how we felt about the performance of our students, and
if you about what one of the causes may be and how you would address it.
Thank you.
Yeah. No,
well,
thank you.
Very easily for me, and even though I'm on the board, I'm only one of 5 people. And so there are some times that we can say some things for change and it doesn't happen. And I hope that the public who might be listening will understand what I'm trying to say. But I think that strong professional development for our instructional staff will be a first step. One size does not fit all when we look at our schools across the school system. However, we are certainly credited with the low performance of our students who are African American. I just cannot believe that we continue to do the same types of things, knowing that we are going to get the same outcomes. That will happen. We need to look at engaging our parents. If you don't engage our parents and to have them to understand what's going on in the classrooms with the children, then we have less help. But strong academic subject matter, the way that we depart and convey the instruction makes a huge difference. I think those things would help us tremendously.
Thank you. And Ms. Banco.
Let me just state unequivocally that the achievement gaps, any of our achievement gaps, are unacceptable. That we need to be meeting the individual needs of every student, and the accountability system that's in place is based on test scores. So while it will bring out an indicator of where there are issues, which the biggest indicator of how you'll do on a test, a standardized test, is your zip code. So there is an indicator of the systemic issues within our entire community, which the Friendship 7 study showed. So on a long-term basis, the school district needs to lead a reconciliation process, especially with our Black community, because I believe that is the biggest barrier to the student-child relationship in the classroom, because a majority of our teachers are white. So in the immediate term, though, I do think there are some things we can do to promote the things that we know work. For example, we know home visits work. We know the more that our teachers and our educators, all of our educators, understand their students, the better they can provide those educational resources and needs to the whole family and make them feel a part of the educational family. So let's incentivize and reward those types of behaviors, along with strong instructional development around cultural competency.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies, Our third question. The term Black tax, and the first question will go to Ms. McGraw, and then Ms. McNeely, and then Ms. Banco, and Ms. Calkin. The term Black tax refers to taxes which we all pay, but disproportionately benefit white people. Some examples of this are the one meal tax, which funds magnet school programs, and the half-cent tax being used to purchase land in West Gainesville, while East Gainesville schools are older and ill-equipped. What actions will you take to address this? Ms. McGraw. Needs to be unmuted.
Now I'm unmuted. Okay. Thank you for that question. The Black tax is simply the price we pay for just being Black. And unfortunately, in the past few months, even with giving COVID-19, the land initiative that happened, as you said, was supported, should have never taken place given the priority of we were in a pandemic. One of the things I did to support the half-cent sales tax initiative, I met with the assistant superintendent of schools who asked me to get a meeting together over at Spring Hill. Got a meeting together with Spring Hill with 160 some people. Prior to that meeting, I asked the person at the school district, make sure we're going to be honest and tell the truth, because part of my platform is about transparency. Where we had that meeting, we told that we were going to use this money to, even though the ballot language does say you can purchase additional land, but that was not what was marketed. It was marketed to reconstruct our schools that are 43 to 45 years old. Besides, we had land that was free when we found about Oakmont, but there was a committee called the School Placement Advisory Committee that got together, talked about making this land in Jonesville #1. At that time in 2018, they were told it was $53,000 an acre, and we turned around and bought it for $100,000 an acre in 2020. And also, when you talk about the one meal, we 36% of that money was used on 12% of the population. So we must be transparent and understand to hear the community voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McNeely.
Trying to unmute myself. One of the things that as a board member, and I would hope anyone who would serve on the board would certainly look at how we spend our money. We need to, as a board member, I always try to look at how efficient and effective our dollars and where it's going. And I want you to know that in many of my visits throughout the district, especially visiting schools, I can see where some of the inequities and disparities are. And one of the things, it almost reminds me of the Black tax, since you mentioned it, Dr. Herring. But one of the things that we must look at is how we spend the dollars. And we have a lot of things that we have in place through the taxpayers' generosity, such as the one meal, the half-cent sales tax. And so it's imperative on my part that I must be able to know how to decide where these monies should go. It needs to be equitable, but so many times we have been left out. And I hate to say this, but the public knows, especially on the eastern portion of Gainesville.
Thank you. Ms. Banco.
Thank you. I have actually walked and visited all 43 of our campuses and spoken with administrators in each of those. As part of the last time we passed the one mil, which is a supplement to our budget. So it ensures that we have art and music. It ensures that we have magnet programs and transportation for those magnet programs. It ensures that we have school nurses. It ensures that we have technology. And I can tell you that the areas that I found where perhaps we were not providing access like we should to some of those was actually in our rural areas, where they lack some of the electives that what you would find within the city of Gainesville. But we still managed to pass the 1 mil because we said we would do a better job of providing those services, like providing band out in Hawthorne. Same thing with the half-cent sales tax. We are getting ready to revitalize the Howard Bishop campus. They're getting ready to break ground tomorrow. $70 million of that first year funding, it will be going to East Side schools. And I have, as I said, I have visited every campus. I organized the community input for that. And I feel strongly that we will be good stewards of that money going forward. And it's a priority as a board member for me.
Thank you. Ms. Calkin?
It was my understanding with the half cent that looking at it, that a large portion of that money was going to be spent on the east side, revitalizing the schools, Bishop, Metcalf, Idlewild, a lot of the schools that have really been waiting for a facelift. And I think it's going to make a huge difference when that money, we see that money and we see the buildings changing and making the kids feel better about going to a beautiful school. I was on the first committee for the 1 mil as a treasurer, and we were at a year when they were thinking about getting rid of music, art. Medicare wasn't going to pay for the nurses anymore, and we were just really in a bind. And so we put that down. Luckily, we have not had to pay for nurses as yet, but it's for that if it would ever happen again, if that would ever happen again. But keeping art and music and also a lot of technology is super important. I have been around and seen, I've talked to some people that work the labs and set up all the equipment, and it seems like they're busy at every single school, hooking things up, replacing equipment. So I don't know. I think it's something that we're getting. I mean, some schools might be in different levels of getting their equipment at certain times, but I think they're trying to get everybody hooked up. I do agree about the rural schools, though. I live out in a rural area and I have a terrible time with my service, so I can sympathize. But I think that the 1 mil has really helped our system, has really helped us and helped us keep our arts and music.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have the fourth question, and this time the order of responses. Ms. Calkins, it'll be your turn to go first, followed by Ms. Banco, Ms. McNeely, and Ms. McGraw. All right. Before the civil rights movement, the practice of redlining created segregation by only allowing Black people to buy homes in certain neighborhoods. Redlining is no longer legal. However, school zoning has created de facto segregation, both racially and economically, which reaches beyond schools and impacts housing values and access to services. Will you address this as a school board member, and if so, how?
When we first moved, we moved into the Pleasant Street neighborhood, and I always thought it was an amazing neighborhood because it was traditionally Black and white. There's some people that have lived there since the late 1800s, and we all got together and worked together, had a community, started a community group with Rosa Williams and Lucille Williams and Furman Wallace, and we all, worked on having everybody feel a part of the community, whether you were Black or white or which side of the street you lived on. I think it's really important to carry that on into our community. I think that we need to talk more about, racism and what is the beauty of having differences all coming together in our neighborhoods, in our work, in our social, in our causes. And I will definitely speak up for, having that as something that's important to me in the campaign.
Thank you. Ms. Banco.
Yes, thank you for that question. This is the most racially segregated city or county that I've ever lived in. So yes, as a board member, as we reimagine and revitalize our schools and what we do inside of them, I expect that we will undergo a revision of our rezoning policy. What criteria do we hold dear when we rezone? I think that it's got to be a large, broad stakeholder, every neighborhood participate and understand how we, as I said, make sure that every student has what they need to learn how to learn. And part of that, my husband and I both agree, is the diversity of the people you're around and the blendedness of your schools and your communities.
Thank you. Ms. McNeely?
Thank
Dr.
you.
McNeely, pardon me. Yes.
That's okay.
I look at redlining certainly as racial segregation. The effects definitely remain in our school system. I had the opportunity of being a principal intern back in the day at Hidden Oak and Irby Elementary. And from that, and having taught at schools in East Gainesville, such as Prairie View back then, and working at Duval Elementary before principalship, I could certainly see the inadequacies in our school system. It almost appeared as a tale of two systems. You hear all the time, a tale of two cities. Well, in our system, it was a tale of two systems, because where I worked as an intern at Hidden Oak and Irby Elementary, I could see a vast difference in what was going on at Prairie View or at Duval. So we need to very much stay in tune with what we can do to eliminate that. And one other thing I'd like to mention, many of our magnet programs, those are schools within a school. And so when you have one side of your school flourishing because it's a magnet program, and the other portion of your school that's not, then we need to correct that as well. Redlining is certainly still in effect in our school system.
Thank you. And Ms. McGraw.
All right, I'm unmuted. Excellent question. Although redlining is illegal, it still takes place as it relates to education. It has to do with zoning and the placement of programs in certain schools that others can't benefit. One of the things we have to begin to do, I have kids who ask me, well, why does my school look one way in East Gainesville? I'm thankful we are redoing the school at Howard Bishop. However, we're not redoing the gym. Some kids have asked, well, why is our gym not being able to be remodeled when other schools look nice when you go to the other side of town? These are the things when you talk to children and what they say. The other thing is we have to make sure all of our schools have the resources that they need to be successful. I had the opportunity to travel with the district to a STEM school, a brand new STEM school. They use bond money to build, and also their one meal initiatives. Excellent, beautiful school. But even though there was a process, a lottery to get in, every child rotated through the same curriculum. So what we have to do is we have to have leadership that's going to market all of our schools in a positive light so that East Gainesville is not seen to be looked in the eyes or in a negative way. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Question number 5. And this is the order that we're going to ask you to answer. Dr. McNeely, Ms. Calkin, Ms. McGraw, and Ms. Banco. Okay. The question is, Lake Forest Elementary is seeking their third principal in less than a year. Can you imagine this happening in West Gainesville at, say, Lawton Childs or Hidden Oaks? Schools in East Gainesville have more long-term substitutes and more newly graduated teachers and fewer experienced teachers. What are your thoughts about this? Starting with you, Ms. McNeely, Dr. McNeely.
Started with me, Dr. Herring, because I have a lot to say about this. I think it's awful. One of the things, especially for the Lake Forest faculty and staff and the students, and you said 3, I counted 5 the other day if we add in the interim principal who's there now at Lake Forest. Can you imagine the instability for those children, for the staff, for the parents, for the community? I'm just appalled at what's going on over there. One of the things that we need to understand is that so many times those schools have great new teachers coming in, but they sometimes are not as seasoned as some of our schools across the way. And so we need to find a better way to not only incentivize teachers to want to come to the schools like Lake Forest, give them more than just money, because that hasn't worked for us either, but to engage them, wanting to be there, or either placing them from the HR department. I am so disappointed in what is going on at that particular school, not with the teachers or staff that's there, but because we have not put the resources and all of the things that that school needs. I hope I answered, and I'll calm down until the next question.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. Ms. Calkin.
Of all the schools to have such a lack of consistency as not a steady principal, Lake Forest is just, it's a shame. It's a real shame. I met with some teachers from Lake Forest last week, and they were talking about the same things that some of the kids will say, well, this is a bad school. I'm going to a bad school. It's, you know, it's just getting a reputation that we need to change. I think that the money incentive to get people there is good. There wasn't one to keep people there. But I think more than money, when they were a D school and they got all kinds of extra help. They had extra counselors, they had social workers. So the teachers, the children are so, they misbehave and they know it's a trauma, something's happened, and they like to be able to stop and talk to them and work it out, but they're teaching class. So during this time when they had extra help, they were able to call a social worker. They'd come down and get the child, talk to them. It was making a huge difference. As soon as they went to a C, they took that extra help away. It needed to stay. It needed to stay at Lake Forest for a while and maybe later on wean it off. But they've got their hands full, and these teachers are young and they're dedicated and they love the school, and they're really just looking for some help out there to get things turned around and to help those children learn.
Thank you, Ms. Calkin. Ms. McGraw. Unmute yourself.
Another excellent question. When you look at a school like Lake Forest, first of all, you have to look at leadership that has turnaround experience. One of the things I look at in our district, we do not have leadership from an administrative standpoint that has turnaround experience, who's able to look at data and move schools. Other things, when you have a school that's almost 100% free and reduced lunch, those families require, there again, the resources that they need to be successful. They need wraparound services. It takes a whole village. You have to have a home liaison. because you have high absenteeism. But you have to remember, a lot of these kids in these underserved schools, they have parents who were failed by the same system. So the home liaison, truancy, wraparound services, not embarrassing people, make sure people are culturally responsive when they come into the front desk. Good morning, welcome to Lake Forest. So we have to do better with our HR practices, making sure our HR is a minority HR recruiter, going into these schools in the trenches, getting people who want to teach, but also you got to support them, getting retired educators to come in and work with teachers who in their first 5 years, they need that mentoring. But those wraparound services and making sure you have people who understand the complexities because of the type of individuals that we serve, this is key to successful schools such as to struggling schools such as Lake Forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGraw. Ms. Banco?
Thank you. The inconsistency with any school and turnaround, if you have to remove a principal, is due to state policy. And the State Board of Education is extremely consistent on removing a principal. We do need to make sure that we have principal professional development in this area of our vulnerable schools, our priority schools, if you will. And I think that the longer a principal is there, in many ways, we need to help principals who have the skill set to shoulder the weight, because you have students that are coming to school with more, under more adverse conditions that may be in any given day hindering their ability to learn how to learn. And they want to be there. And the teachers that are there, while they may not be as experienced as others, are tremendous, tremendous teachers who usually are coming in with brand new ideas and they just need the resources. And if you went to the campuses, if we can bring up the volunteer base at these campuses, I believe we can turn around the way people think about it. These campuses and these communities have things to teach the rest of our school district. They are doing many of the community engagement pieces and classroom engagement very well, and they just need our support, our wider community support. They need to feel like a part of the Alachua County Public School education family.
Thank you so much, Ms. Banco.
And for our final question, the order will be Ms. Banco will be first, followed by Ms. McGraw, Ms. Calkins, and Dr. McNeely. A question that is certainly on the minds of all parents these days. We know we are facing unusual challenges, to say the very least, due to COVID-19. What are your thoughts of reopening our schools and the plans that are being put in place for Alachua County children? Ms. Banco.
Thank you very much for the question. As a parent of 3 children still in Alachua County Public Schools, this has been on the forefront since we went to pandemic pedagogy at the end of the 9 weeks. My thoughts on reopening are, we have to work in conjunction with the Department of Health and the state to understand what phase we're in this pandemic and whether or not we can safely reopen schools. After we figure out what phase we're in, then we have to figure out, we need to have a better understanding of the workforce and make sure that they feel safe and comfortable in doing their jobs, and understanding and meeting the needs of those very talented teachers who might not be able to be in the classroom, and making sure that they are still part of our educational family and taken care of. And then I believe, as a parent, taking a look at the options that have been offered, I think we just go talk to our schools, go talk to your principals or the teachers at that school, see if you can imagine your day and imagine whether or not you feel like you feel like your child would be safe. Because in order to get our communities back up and running and to put our children back in, many of our children back in the safe environment where we need to be together, we are going to have to figure out how to reopen schools safely.
Thank you. Ms. McGraw?
Again, thank you for that question.
Sure.
again, leadership is about accountability and responsibility. Back in March when COVID hit, of course, our governor gave us their plan or ideas, city and the county as well. Leadership should have automatically kicked in. We should have had a task force put together immediately. First step, health and safety always comes first. There should have been the doctors. We could have reached out to infectious disease doctor, Dr. Kima. I had her on my show. She also, you had UF doctor from the Passion Institute, Michael Lizardo. You bring in for them to give you a projection for the next 180 days, to hear from the pediatricians, because they have a lot of kids that are suicidal. Then once you hear from them, you get from the school district to give you all of the facilities that may be available, because we may have to spread out. But then you put the task force together. You should have had parents, teachers, administrators, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, students, ESC services, after school, city and county reps. You don't have to do this alone. You come together, put the plan in place, because you keep saying staff downtown can do it. Ocala had 103 people. If you're going to reopen schools, people, children, teachers, they have to be feel safe. We have over 2,000 and some cases here in Alachua County. And if we're not ready, we have to look at other options, but it takes a whole village to pull that together. So right now, it's very dangerous. Also, we're not set for our children, every school, to have a laptop, because the kids who, there again, low performing, are still going to suffer the most. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McGrath. Ms. Calkins.
Well, that question has been keeping me up at night, just trying to figure out every time you think you've got something, then something else pops up that makes it still not feel safe. We still have a lot of work to do. I know that parents have to be very concerned about their children. I'm hearing from a lot of teachers and support staff that are very concerned with the numbers going up. I don't think they should have to decide about taking early retirement or taking a year's leave because they don't want to go back to work and get sick. Some of them have different conditions and things like that. It's just so up in the air right now. I mean, it may be if the numbers keep climbing, we'll have to all do online for maybe the first 9 weeks. I don't know. I guess really we're going to have to wait until we figure out where we are as we get a little bit closer. I know there's been a lot of discussion. Everybody, like Dr. McNeely said, that meetings are long. Everyone wants to comment and have something to say about it. So let's just hope we don't do anything until we know that our children, our teachers, our staff are going back to a safe place and a healthy place. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Dr. McNeely.
It's my opinion at this point, a juncture, that we need to just hold up. We've talked a lot of, and when I say hold up, not open the doors for brick and mortar. We've talked a lot about leadership today. We have no leadership in DC, Washington, none in Tallahassee. So we ought to make a difference here with the leadership that we have. We have been talking since March, sitting, planning, but not necessarily, I hate to repeat some of the things candidate McGraw said, but a task force was needed. It's still not too late, especially if we are going to open much later in August or the fall of the year, say October. I think that we have the University of Florida here, all of the medical people, Santa Fe College, smart citizens, even our students should have been chiming in. That has not happened. So therefore, I stand, you will see my vote on the 21st of this month, but I can tell you right now, I'm not for opening the school. I understand our parents who need children to be back, but we cannot send them back because of health. And I'm just going to say because of health and things back in their home when they go back to their individual homes. Teachers, principals, ESPs, and all of the other workers should not be exposed.
Thank you. That concludes our 6 questions for this evening. Thank you so much for your candor, for your passion, and for your wisdom. It was truly, truly an honor to be with you this evening. We'll turn now to your closing remarks. Each of you will have 2 minutes, and we'll use the same system. I'll give you the claps when it is 30 seconds left to those 2 minutes. Reverend Herring.
Yes, Ms. McGraw, we're inviting you to give your heart in 2 minutes as to what kind of school board member you would be of Alachua County. So you have 2 minutes, my sister.
All right, thank you. The kind of school board member I would be, which I've already shown since 1992 in this community, I will be visible. I will be flexible. I will go into the trenches and talk to the people who are working, such as our teachers, who are struggling in the classroom with discipline issues. I will be able to talk to families, because I do that now in the business that I serve with developmental disabled. Because see, I understand, I've been in the trenches and going to IEP meetings with parents. Our school system is on life support. It can go 2 ways. We can pull the plug on status quo. In my heart of hearts, I've supported several other people on the board, but some people have been there 16 to 20 years. We have not changed. The data in 5 years has not changed. That is a problem. We can't continue to go in the direction of status quo. Also, I'm a very optimistic person. One of the policies I was set is that school board members will have to go into the school systems and visit on a regular basis to make sure we can know where the issues are, so we can put policies in place to make sure there's equity, every child has what they need, and equality, making sure opportunities are available for all children. Everybody's not going to college. I understand. We want them going on to college without a lot of remedial courses, and we want them to have a career, vocational, what I call old school. Because right now, when you talk to the children, when you talk to the babies, some of them feel they're not successful because they're not going to college. And because all of you, and you know, if you cannot read, you are at a disadvantage. I have sent over 300 and some kids in Alachua County public schools to a program called Phonographics for Reading because they cannot read. We cannot continue to get programs and keep slapping them up against the wall and think they're going to stick. It takes leadership that's committed to serve and has the courage to lead. And I thank you for this opportunity this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Banco, will you share, as I love how Reverend Dr. Herring said, will you share your heart as the candidate for District 2?
Yes, thank you. I thank the UCG Education Task Force, and I also thank the NAACP for your questions and comments tonight and for hosting this forum. As your next school board member, I would like to make sure that we have a climate and a culture for every student and every family that they feel a part of the Alachua County Public School educational family, that we are a partner in your child's education, that you are receiving what you need as a parent to ensure that your child meets their full potential. I've spent the last 13 years in the classroom, at the school level, at the county level, and at the state level. I have walked every campus and met with many, many, many teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, all of our staff. Then I have listened to their stories, and I have carried those stories with me in my advocacy work. And we have come up with solutions for when there was no parent voice at the county level to recharter an Alachua County Council of PTAs. When we walked around and saw the tired condition of our campuses, all of our campuses, from neglect, we went out and did the half-cent sales tax initiative. And recently, my work with Equality Florida has helped ensure that we have an ally and resources at all of our schools for responding to our LGBTQ+ youth. I will continue to do this advocacy work as a board member, but I will also represent you and your families as a parent on the board and someone who will always be visible, always accessible, and try to do what my parents told me to do every day, which was be good and do good work. So I'm asking you for your vote to allow me to be good and do good work for you and your families in the Alachua County Public Schools.
Thank you. Ms. Calkin, will you give us your closing statement and tell us what kind of board member you would be? How would you govern on the school board of Alachua County?
I thank you for this evening. It's been wonderful. I think my strong suit is a problem solver. I am very good at listening, at trying to take two sides of something and come out with a solution that everyone can live with. There are a lot of things that need to be addressed in the school board. I'm concerned about absenteeism. It's huge. And when children aren't at school, they're not learning. We need to get out in the community, find out what's going on. I know that this year they're going to have a couple of extra social workers, liaisons that they are going to send out. So I think that's a good start. I also worry about student mental health, especially there's problems enough, but with all of this virus going on, kids are going to be a little bit different, taking care of them and having some extra support for them at the schools. I am going to be wherever I need to be as a school board member. I'll be at the schools. If somebody wants to talk to me, I return my phone calls immediately. I answer questions. I've done that for 38 years at the union. And that was something, learning a lot about the system from every part. I've been everywhere in the school system, representing employees and working on committees that help things get better. So my idea of being a board member is being very accessible and working hard all the time to make this school system the best it can be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. McNeely, will you give us your closing thoughts and, as you said, how you see yourself continuing to make positive needed change in Alachua County schools?
Thank you. And again, thank you for having this forum. It's certainly beneficial for the whole community. I'm running for re-election, and I think I've said this so many times now, because all of the children in Alachua County deserve a high quality education. So that means that I have to keep speaking out, and I will be working to bring about the necessary changes that must happen. As a school board member, I have worked to increase graduation rates, higher salaries for all school employees, renewal of the 1 Mill initiative, which takes care of art and technology, the half-cent sales tax most recently passed for the infrastructure of our schools, our new equity department, and we also have now our education for curriculum that we have certainly pushed, workforce development, and many other initiatives that I want to continue to work on. This work is not easy, and so I need your support and help to get this work done. I want you to know that I need your voices at the school board meetings and your voice at the ballot box. I humbly ask you to re-elect me, Leonetta McNeely, for the Alachua County School Board.
Thank you, Dr. McNeely. This has been a wonderful evening. And ladies, I'm so honored to be with you today. And I'm sure Reverend Talia feels the same way. I'm sure we know a little bit more about your vision for our children. And that's the most important thing that we wanted to find out today. So we thank you again to Reverend Talia Raymond and the Racial Justice Committee of UCG. We also thank President Evelyn Fox and the NAACP. So we ask that you go in peace, be blessed, and be safe. Thank you.